Good. Happy happy Thursday, Linda and Scott. How are you guys doing?
Happy
Silas says hello.
Thursday. Awesome.
Doing well.
Hi from Matthews.
Silas said happy
Excuse me.
Thursday.
Take over, Linda.
So today's guest is Scott Citron, and he is the president of, am I saying it right? Citron, right? Or am I saying it wrong?
That's
Citron, a
correct.
company
Mhm.
known for helping companies and organizations improve the bottom line through strategic public relations, communications, marketing programs, top-notch client service. An accredited consultant, Scott works with companies, organizations, and individuals in professional services, medical, legal, accounting, engineering, high tech, business to business. And most people know you as Scott from Intuit.
Right. That's a nice title to have.
Yeah, but they don't realize you actually have your own business. And that's
I
something
do.
that we wanted to kind of highlight today, because you actually do have a business and you help people. So we wanted to kind of highlight that too, and then share your wisdom. And
So I actually wanted to find out, how did you come to be where you are today? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I'll give you hopefully the short version.
Mhm.
The long version would take a long time, but the short version is when I graduated college, I have a journalism degree from Missouri. I wanted to be a magazine editor, and then I figured out that I also wanted to eat, so it didn't quite work out like I wanted it to. Did PR, marketing, communications early on for several nonprofits, PR agency, and eventually came on to the Texas Society of CPAs as their director of internal communications. So I handled the magazine that they produced monthly. I handled all member communications, member affinity programs, and so on. And then in right before Thanksgiving of 1995, was bounced out through a layoff and cried for probably about a week. Cried into my turkey and dressing, and probably for about a week. And I got some very good advice from very close friends that said, look, you can choose to wallow in this or do something about it. And I had a family to feed. So, and my son was only 5 at the time. So I knew I had to do something. Started interviewing, got a few things here and there, a few offers, nothing that I really thought was great. And then I got a call
Uh-oh.
It was a very important call.
from I was at CPA. Yeah, so one of them was the financial arm of MBNA America. I don't know if you all remember them, but they're previously Bank of America ended up taking over MBNA, and at the time, the AICPA was trying to decide where they wanted to go with their affinity card program. So they knew AICPA knew that I knew the players in the business. The financial arm of MBNA brought me up to Boston 1 week a month for 6 months to teach their affinity card salespeople how nonprofits thought and operated. But the whole strategy was to get into the AICPA. And I had the context there at the time, obviously having been with one of the state societies. Again, long story short, did that gig, got another gig. I thought if I could just be busy through the spring, just pay bills, I'll try this on my own. And this November, I say the firm's going to be a quarter of a century man, which is basically 25 years this November.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, and Brian joined me, my son Brian, who a lot of you all know, joined me 6 years ago this past February.
So, Brian, I know you're watching. I need you to do me a favor in the chat. You need to share with us one of the most embarrassing stories you possibly can. Would be great, or maybe one of the funnest stories. That may be a better one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I parlayed basically the experience I had with an accounting organization into what I'm doing now. And so I started out with accounting clients, morphed that over the years. I had a lot of healthcare early on. I did some B2C work. Remember Blockbuster Video? I did
Yep.
really cool projects for them. Worked for Pizza Hut. Really a lot of different clients over the years. And then I said it felt like The Godfather, always being dragged back in, and that's what happened with accounting. So around the seventh or eighth year, I thought, well, I'll just stick with accounting. It's been good for a lot of reasons. I know I need to always look for work outside of accounting, and we have several clients outside of accounting. And again, I won't mention Brian too much because his ego will be too large, but I couldn't do this without him, and he knows that day in, day out.
You just love accountants, right?
I don't know that he
Yes.
loves accountants as much as I do, but I
Oh,
think he puts on a pretty good show.
So for all of the people who are watching right now in actually both Zoom and in Facebook, if you are, um, if you're familiar with like Intuit's QBO blog or the Firm of the Future blog, let us know. Put a comment in the chat there so we kind of know. These are some of the areas. So you basically help manage that for Intuit is one aspect of it. I'm going to go get my dog in a second.
he's so
Um,
cute.
he wants to be part of this. Nice day. Um, what has been one of your greatest, like, what's been one of your best memories involved with those two blogs with Intuit that you could share with everybody?
Well, that's a good question. I think the best thing that's come out of it is all the connections I've made with some really cool people. Um, let's face it, the accountants, CPAs, EAs, whatever their credentials are not the ones who are writing for the profession. They're not the ones who are speaking out. They're not the ones who are vocal about what's going on, either good or not so good. And those are the most engaging people, that I'd want to know. I don't want to know about the tax person who's in a back room somewhere inside of a firm, maybe, and all they do is process tax returns. That's not interesting to me. What's interesting to me are the people that really have a voice in the profession and really have an opinion. And I've tried to curate the blogs so that that voice comes out. And Intuit's been extremely generous with me with saying, okay, you're the subject matter expert in this. We want you to carry this through. If you sense that something's not going to be taken very well, by all means, hold up your hand, let us know. We'll take a look at it. But for the most part, I work pretty autonomously, and they have been just really good about me carrying through the editorial, with what I think would work for the audiences.
What I personally always appreciated is working with you helped me find my voice when having the opportunity to start to write for the different blogs. And the way you would bring back comments were very helpful and instructive, which, as an accountant, I hated English. I mean, English was my least favorite class. So to find myself writing articles was always kind of a little surprising to me. But you definitely helped push that forward. And I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate that. I think when I ask, let's say, a new author to write something and they're hesitant, I always say, is it because you don't think you're going to do a good job? And 90% of the time, well, probably more than that, that's why they're hesitant. It's that fear factor. And I always say, don't worry about making it perfect. That's what the editors are for. That's what I'm for.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you make it right, make it sound better. You're going to see it again before it goes to publish. So if there's a lot of changes, you'll see it again.
Yeah.
We're not going to change anything that's substantive. I mean, we're just not going to do that. But if something doesn't sound right or they need some help shaping something up, that's what we're here for. And that we love doing that work. So, I would say, everybody has a voice. I mean, everybody should have a voice. Whether they want to project that is a different matter. But I always say, I think everybody can write very, very well for us. So carry that through.
You make us look good too. I can remember the first time I wrote for you, and I remember being so excited because you can get pinged back from Intuit. So you got a little SEO going on. And then I remember the first time Matthew wrote for you too, because he was all excited about it too. Because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write for Intuit, and Firm of the Future. It's pretty cool. And really, anybody can write if you write. I mean, anybody even watching this, if you want to write an article, I mean, you can just reach out and
Please
submit it. And
please do.
yeah.
So, I know we wanted to find out a little bit additional information specifically around marketing for, well, for accountants, everything else. I know, Linda, I believe you had a couple questions that you wanted to ask, right?
For, say that again?
For Scott. So, like, you and I have been talking before about, trying to figure out the best tips and tricks of how, like, accountants and bookkeepers, how can we build a business while we're working remotely, right? And how, especially, how does that tie into marketing? What would you say?
Because let's face it, accountants, we're not good at marketing ourselves, and most of us are pretty shy and introverted, and don't know what to do. Like, where do I start? What's the first place? Do I go to Facebook? Do I throw money at Facebook? Do I just try to grow it organically? I mean, is there anything you would give for advice that would help somebody to, if there, we've got a lot of people in our group that are just starting their businesses right now, and they might be in the same place you were when you lost your job and you're just starting, and it's a little scary, and you know that you want to get going. How do you get going?
Yeah, I think the main thing is you have to be a good listener. I think that that is a huge part of being in business, no matter what kind of business you're in. And my grandmother, who was very, very wise, said it's always better to listen than speak. And she had a lot of those like little witticisms, but that was something that always stuck with me because she said, always listen. And I think that's the case when you're in business. No matter really, again, no matter what kind of business you're in, you've got to listen for those cues. You've got to listen for if you have a colleague or a peer, you see something on Facebook that says, I just don't know, I'm really having a problem with this technology. I just don't know how to do Zoom, or that's an opportunity. And again, you don't have to run in and say, I can solve that for you. I can, let's talk about how to make this an engagement. That's not what you want to do. You also want to give something away. You want to give something away for free. And that's how you gain trust. You always want to give some kind of advice or some kind of consult or whatever that is. Now, when it comes to crunching numbers, doing the actual work, yeah, you want to charge for that. But
Mhm.
I think if you listen rather than be more reactive, that helps you build your business so much better. And I think people trust you more when they know that you're really listening to what they have to say. And now's a really tough time,
Mm.
people. Even if you're in a niche that's booming, and there are some of those,
Mhm.
uh, let's face it, a lot of accountants have niches that aren't doing so well.
Yeah.
We have a bookkeeper client in Atlanta that we work with who has had several clients close up shop because they own small restaurants and
Yeah.
not anything larger than a little local mom and pop place, but they've had to close. And it's tragic. I mean, it's just really, really awful. I have to tell you, I didn't think I'd see this in my lifetime,
No.
but here we
And
are.
if you're in that niche, do you pivot and change it up, or do you hang in there with them and try to be creative? I mean, that's the hard part when it comes to the marketing. I know Chris Maxey, he's in the restaurant
Yeah.
industry, so but he's managed to figure out a way to be out there as the expert, and that's a smart pivot for him. Not he's always been an expert, but it's smart what he's doing to be out there as giving free advice to everybody, kind of like Matthew did too, to let them know that, hey, I'm here, I want to help. And I know both these guys, so I know they're genuinely doing it out of the kindness of their heart, but sometimes that'll be coming back to you in tenfold. If you've been helping people out, you might get some clients out of that. So it's
Yeah,
a way to market
he's
yourself.
been really good. Well, he's been very good for Intuit in that he wrote a blog for us on,
Yes.
restaurants and how to make sure that you offer delivery that's safe and
Yeah.
secure, if you're going to do the delivery thing. But yeah, no, I think if you could afford to take the time now to focus on your marketing and your PR,
Mhm.
that would be that's a great idea, is spend that time now, because let's face it, most of us are too busy during our regular work week when life was normal compared to
Mhm.
what it is now. If you can afford to take that time and do things like email your clients, give them some information that would be helpful to them, call your clients. I know there's a lot of accountants out there who probably haven't called their clients directly, Maybe they've emailed, maybe they've kind of put something up on social media. They're basically kicking at the tires if they do that. There's nothing like getting a phone call from one of your providers, one of your service providers especially, to say, how are you? Tell me what's going on. How's your family?
Yeah.
So on. My father, who is still living, he just turned 95 in April.
Amazing.
Uh, he sold ladies' coats. So he sold all weather coats, fake furs, and fake leather coats in Texas and Oklahoma growing up. So you can imagine when he went to like South Texas and it was 100 degrees, he was
Oh.
trying to sell coats. But the most remarkable thing that he had that I take away always is, I know it's crazy, is, and he put two kids through college doing this, is he had this little 3-ring 5x8 binder he carried with him in the car. And in there he had the name of every customer. And these were like little mom and pop boutiques. But it said like Sheila's Dress Shop in San Antonio. And it said Sheila is married to Robert. They have 2 kids, Hyacinth and Daisy, and the kids are into whatever they're into. And he had this whole sheet. So when he would walk into Sheila's Dress Shop, he would say to Sheila, how's Robert? How are the kids? What's going on with them? And every time they would say, Frank, I can't believe you remembered like to ask that. And he'd
It's
say,
amazing.
well, yeah, of course I did. Well, basically the point I'm trying to get to is it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
You have to reach out to your clients. You have to show them your care. And when you do that, you really do create that trust.
I think it's great advice. And as you were saying, they always talk about if you're ever experiencing a down economy, it's the most important time to market your business. It may not always seem to be you may not be financially capable to do it the same way you would like, but if you're not continuing that presence out there, you don't want to be forgotten. So if you have a smaller budget, you find unique ways to keep your name out there without necessarily having to spend money.
Mhm.
Additionally, marketing, another aspect of marketing is client referrals. So it's taking the time to connect to your existing clients. It's a lot harder to get a new client than it is to retain a good client. And if you keep that good client and you gently remind them, hey, who else do you happen to know um, that's looking for assistance? Do you know anybody else who needs additional information on XYZ? Those are ways that you can just try to bring in more leads to grow the business.
And
Um,
I'll tell you something interesting about that is the flip side of that is your clients want referrals as well.
Absolutely.
True.
So that's a key part of this, and a lot of people forget, no matter where you work or what you work in, is your clients want referrals as well. We picked up an HVAC client in just after the first of the year. Well, he's looking for referrals, just like we're looking for referrals. We're looking for that same thing. A big part of it is really sitting down, and this is a where I think a lot of people fall short on marketing, and is think about what makes a good referral. What are you looking for? And when people ask me, if I say, well, when I ask people, rather, let's say that when I ask people, who are you looking for? Oh, anybody's fine. Well, the reality is anybody's not fine.
Yeah.
And if you ask a few more questions, you'll get down to, oh, I'm really looking for a client that is in this niche or does this or in this certain part of the country or, whatever that is. So again, your clients are looking for as many referrals as you're looking for. They're in business as well, right?
One of the coolest things that we've had happen with Parkway is when I get to start seeing our clients' names inside of other clients' books.
That
That
is,
is a really, really fulfilling feeling, right? That you're seeing that crossover as much as possible. And now is a great time for that. It's coming up with creative ideas or ways for people to team up and work together towards new business. So on that, for people again watching out there, please share some comments with us of what are some of the creative things that you're trying to do right now to market your business. And if you've had any successes, share them with us. We'd love to share them with everybody else also. Um,
What do you think about newsletters, Scott? Do you think that those are a good way to, they're a lot of work, but do you think those are a good way to market your business? It's definitely a good way to keep in contact with your clients or.
Yeah, I love newsletters, and we prefer Constant Contact over like Mailchimp and some of the others, just because Constant Contact's much better about recognizing that you're not trying to spam the world. Mailchimp's kind of harsh about that, and I'm sure there's people on here who love Mailchimp versus the others, but we really we really stand by Constant Contact. And yeah, newsletters are, I think they're really easy to do. Of course, I'm in the business, but
Yeah.
if you only, you know, let's say you find a couple of articles you want to push out to your clients, or you know, and you can, all you have to do is include the name of the article, the link, maybe a couple lines about it, maybe some kind of welcome message at the top. Be sure you follow all the canned spam stuff, but if you use something like Constant Contact, it'll put it on there automatically for you. Push it out. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Somebody will unsubscribe because they don't want to be bothered
Yeah.
by it.
And I
Okay.
guess you don't get too hurt feelings if people unsubscribe, but if you are a certified pro advisor and you've got the points, you actually get a discount on Constant Contact. So it's a
Right.
perk of being a pro advisor and getting and taking the test and passing it. So
That's,
it's a definite big perk. So
yeah, definitely right. Yeah, I do love newsletters.
So when you bring in a new client, whatever industry it would be, what does like what does your team focus on first if somebody has no presence online yet?
yeah.
What would be the steps you would take to try to build that up? And it would be a long term, it takes a while to do it, but what would that look like?
Well, the first thing we do is we talk about their messaging. In other words, what are the messages you want to put out there about your company, your firm? You know, what is it you want to say? And we actually get that down on paper. Well, nowadays it's a Google Doc, but we actually do talk about, okay, let's get the messaging correct first, because that's going to permeate into everything else you do.
Yeah.
And it's not a mission statement. It's not any of that stuff. I think a lot of that's very esoteric. I don't like that, because I mean, what does that really mean? Messaging is more like, we're a firm that, you know, this is where we want to be. This is what we want to do. This is who we're looking for. You know, this is the kind of work we do, and talk about it in those terms and how you can really help your clients. And so as far as establishing a presence online, you know, I think everybody and their brother has a website by now. They should. If they don't, they should have something. But everything kind of plays off the website in terms of, if you're doing social media, you've got the links on there for that. If you're blogging, you put some kind of blog on your website, some kind of capability for that. If you're going to if you're doing email and your email signature, obviously your URL is going to be in there for your website. Everything kind of plays off that. You don't have to have anything fancy. It could be one page. You know, it can be a one-page landing page for your site. It doesn't have to be, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 pages long. Nobody's going to read through that kind of thing nowadays. But the great thing about being online is the SEO associated with it. So when you're doing LinkedIn, when you're doing your website, when you're blogging, if you're putting a video up on YouTube, all that stuff can be tagged properly so that you can be found on SEO. Now, are you going to be, you know, at the very top of the list? Sorry about that. You're going to be at the very top of the list.
They're coming
Maybe,
to
maybe not. But, you know, a good marketing company will work with you to get you to at least the first page. The other tip I heard the other day on, you know, we're talking about like free things. It's not exactly free, but I heard that Google AdWords were being discounted right now because,
Yep. So there's two things. If you actually have been doing some spend with Google AdWords, they'll actually give you credits towards your account, but you have to have already been spending with them.
Mhm.
But you can do, as I always talk about, Google My Business. So if you don't have a website at all yet, get started with a Google My Business. It's free. You basically claim your listing, and they have it to where you can create a basic landing page website, and you're stuffing the beast with the information about your business that helps get everything started. From that, you can put little posts on, which you can then take and share to your social media. So it's the shortest pathway into getting started with it before you maybe spend money onto an actual site, which still is a little better.
But it's not a bad idea if you're like complete, like a lot of accountants, like I can remember just being completely lost.
Yeah.
So if you just don't know what your messaging is, you don't know where to start. If you talk to Scott and work with his firm, you can get that started, and maybe it's better than throwing that money at Facebook because you don't know what you're doing there either. And then get the pathway to know how to start to market yourself, because you start a brand new website, if you do Wix or something really inexpensive, Google doesn't know you're there. And for a while, you have to start really showing up everywhere. It's a job, but if you're just starting, you've got the time. And especially if you're starting now, you've got the time to really put yourself out there. And the crazier looking that will get some attention, like if you have your mouth wide open, you might get somebody was telling me too, it's more about the faces too. So not so much pictures, but more faces that people are drawn to, a goofy face over just somebody, smiling. But yeah, so.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I've got a funny story that just happened this morning. One thing on LinkedIn, like when I get requests to connect to somebody on LinkedIn, if they don't have a profile picture, I am not connecting to them.
Yeah.
They may not necessarily be a spam thing. It may not be that, but they need to have a profile picture. Funny thing this morning, I got a query from someone who wanted to write for the QuickBooks blog, and her name was B. Potter, B-E-A Potter. Of course, what do you think her name was on like her email? Beatrix Potter. I'm like, no, that's not going to like, it's going to work. The other thing I get emails from all the time from people who want to write for the blogs, and they haven't read the blogs. They haven't even looked at them. You can tell they haven't. That's like a no number one in PR. When you're working with, we're trying to get an article placed at a publication and you haven't read that publication or not familiar with it. It's like, why would you place an article on accounting and something on a publication on electronics? It's just not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with your company, there's so many different aspects of marketing, whether we're talking about search engine optimization, SEO, whether we're talking about pay-per-click type stuff, or if it's content writing, so blogs and doing video or creating website. What is your either primary focus or area that you like the most?
Probably content. We do more with content than anything else. So yeah, we'll go place an article in a publication. We'll try to get, beat the bushes to get something placed in a local business journal. We can do all that. I mean, that's kind of PR 101. But we really enjoy the content aspect of what we do. So if let's say a firm is deciding that they want to start a blog, they don't have one, or maybe they have one, but all they do is put up material they find elsewhere, or and material from another provider. We'll work with them to say, okay, what are the kinds of things you want to write about? Let's talk about, the tone for these pieces. Is it something you want to be, is it an opinion you want to take? Is it thought leadership? We'll work with a firm or a company to help them with that. We'll write the content for them for, let's say, we're pushing an email campaign out for for a client, or we'll do that. It's all about the content. It's all about the written word. And we love writing, we love editing, we love that, the whole content aspect of what we do, because I still stand by what I said years ago, content is king.
Yep.
You've got good content, the rest of what you do is going to fall into place, and people are going to read that, going to appreciate it. You have to give, and you have to give something, you have to give your advice. You have to give your advice out for what you're doing, just like you all when you're writing something about QBO, or how to use it for law firms, or whatever the case is. You're putting your opinion out there. This is how it needs to be done. And that's important. People need that. There's a whole lot of people out there that have no idea where to start, even working with a law firm on QuickBooks. And, both of you, to praise you a little bit, you all have done a very good job of that. Law firms and other niches as well. So again, it's like, what are you trying to accomplish with this content? Where do you want to be? what kinds of clients are you looking for, or customers, and then how do we get that done?
Mhm.
It like Linda, you kind of mentioned this earlier, but if people are just getting started to do this, it's good to just always remember it takes time.
Yeah.
Like it's very seldom that you have somebody that will create one article and then just magically it just explodes and wins the whole world, right? So um, I think I've got over 120 plus videos on my YouTube channel at this point. Linda, I know you've probably got even more than that on yours.
Oh, yeah.
So all of those things and the different articles that you do, if you start writing something and you don't finish it or you get stuck, save it in a folder. Don't ever get rid of it. Like they call it a swipe file. You'd be amazed how many times it's come in handy to just be able to pull that back up and look through them and get maybe a new idea that's reinvigorated with newer technology or something.
And then you can repurpose stuff too. I mean, I didn't even think about doing that. And then if you've been writing a lot of things, you can go back in and repurpose some of the things so you're not having to reinvent the wheel every week, because it's really important to be consistent with your out putting stuff out there and getting it out. And I don't know if I overdo sometimes, because I know I try to put, I'm into LinkedIn. I'm trying to post into LinkedIn because of the attorneys, right? But I'm amazed at how many attorneys don't have a website. Like that blows my mind when I get a lead and I go to look for their website and they have nothing, or they have one, but I look at the reviews and they have like 1 star and they have like one review. It's like, do you guys not really look at this stuff? But I guess some of them don't.
Some of them don't, especially the ones who are trial attorneys. They're
Yeah.
going to get the business anyway.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, yeah, I mean, it's, what you've got to do too is, when you're online is one good way to, again, we're talking about not spending much money on marketing is participate in online conversations.
Mhm.
Yes.
So that's a great way to get involved in something. And LinkedIn is a great forum for that. There's so many great groups. Same
Yeah.
with Facebook, though. There are some great groups on Facebook. Instagram's a bit of a different animal. We know that, but it can work. We know, you all know a lot of accountants who are using Instagram very successfully. But LinkedIn and Facebook are the really big ones right now. Twitter's still there. Twitter's still active, but if you're like my Twitter feed, I mean, I'm following all these different people. I never spend time just going on there and scrolling through the Twitter feed. I don't have time to do that. So,
Or I can't figure it out. It's like,
right. The
where's
other
the link?
question, I will tell you another question I get regularly is how much time should I spend on social media?
That's a great
That
question.
is a great question.
And I always recommend that if you can, make that the first thing you do every morning. So if you can spend 10 to 15 minutes every morning just doing what I say, do LinkedIn, do Facebook. What I mean by that is connect to somebody, participate and, comment on somebody's post. It doesn't always have to be a personal thing. It can, hopefully it's going to be business oriented for firms and for practices. But spend a few minutes, maybe make yourself a goal. I'm going to connect to 5 new people this week on LinkedIn.
Interesting.
And you can do that by doing searches. You can see who's connected to each other. If you want to meet somebody, by all means, ping your connections. Say, can you introduce me to Mary Jo?
Mhm.
And I will tell you though, if your connection says no, I don't feel comfortable doing that, there's probably a reason why you don't
Mhm.
want to connect to that other person. So don't be offended if somebody says, I'm not comfortable doing that. You probably don't want to be connected to that person. There must be something there that you're not realizing.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, if you think about it, if people are friendly and open and willing to meet people, then everybody would be willing to do that unless there's an issue like you're saying. So that's a very interesting point.
I had a weirdo reach out to me a long time ago in the Intuit community.
Yep. I lost a bet, so I had to. Um, so one of the challenges I've always experienced when it comes to social media, and maybe you have some insight towards it, is, we all you have your own personal profile, right? So I'm Spartacus, but then I have my business persona. I've got my business page and all these things. when I first set up all my social media, I did it off of the tag Parkway Inc. for everything. But nobody wanted to follow Parkway Inc. Everybody always goes after the person directly. How do you keep those blended together and promote the business like because we want to get that business promoted, right? But how do you do it successfully?
But people want to work with people. They don't want to work with a like
Business.
a sign that says Parkway Inc. They
Yeah.
want to work with Spartacus. They want to work with the actual person. Yeah, it used to be years ago. I would get a question when I would present, and they said, "No, well, I heard I need to have a personal Facebook page and a business page. I need to have 2 profiles. Who can keep up with all that? Nobody I know." So the best way I could say is be authentic, be genuine with what you're posting. Stay away from the politics. Stay away from religion. Stay away from anything you can't discuss at the dinner table or at a dinner party. That's what I always say is, if you can't discuss it, don't discuss it. And, I can't tell you how many people I've unfriended because I just I don't want to see it anymore. It makes me exhausted to see people do these diatribes on, what's going on in the world. And okay, yeah, there's a lot of stuff wrong in the world. How about focusing on your business? What can you get across for your business that's going to make other people stand up and take notice? And right now, the PPP thing is a great example. I know you all have done videos on that. I think that's a great example of putting out information about that. One question I asked my accountant was, because I'm stupid when it comes to accounting. I don't know anything. I have QBO that saves me every time, but beyond that, I'm like, well, if I get this loan, which I'm still waiting on, but if I get the loan, how do I account for that in QuickBooks? What am I going to do? And the first thing he said was set up a separate checking account with your bank. And that way it shows that everything's coming out of one account. Like, that's a great idea. I've never thought of that. Yeah, you can tag stuff in QBO and I'll do that. But it's like, I would have never thought about that. So like, that's a tip you give, like, just talking about it. You don't have to specifically call out a client that says, I'm working with such and such client on his PPP and, whatever. But, give out some advice like that. Talk about it. Talk about things that are timely.
It's helped us grow our YouTube channel, that's for sure, which is great. But there's certain aspects of some of this that the PPP has been interesting because it's such a moving target. You get afraid that if you share information, something's going to change, and then you will have given bad information. But I feel that if you are giving the proper disclaimers, and if you're doing the proper due diligence to try to get the right information, that's the best we could all ever try to do, right?
Yeah, and there's so many other great programs that are being offered too, like the payroll deferral, the Social Security thing. There's a lot of other stuff in the CARES Act that you could spend, I think, easily 20 different posts just on each little part of the CARES Act. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find some source. I'm going to plug the Intuit Tax Pro Center. That's a great place to go for that. We work on that as well. And we have really dissected the CARES Act. We've had a lot of professionals write on that, internal and external to Intuit, and they're really pulling apart all the different provisions of the CARES Act. A lot of stuff I didn't realize was in there. I mean, how would I? So,
It's an interesting one I think most people don't know is there's actually money earmarked for the different SBDCs, small business development centers,
Mhm.
for consultants that can help teach the community how to telework and teach them about financial literacy, so forth. That if you do have a relationship with a local SBA office, that is a source of revenue. You should be getting down there, talking to them, trying to get set up as a consultant, and you could be getting some money coming in the door, helping other business owners.
well, and look at how great that is for networking as well. Look at all the people you're going to meet.
And local.
Yeah, local.
So, well, we always try to keep this pretty close time-wise. So I wanted to ask you one last question, which we all have our journeys we go through and we learn these different lessons. If there was one bit of wisdom that you would share onto everybody through your experiences, what would that be?
I think it's really trust in your work, trust that you're doing good work. You'll know instinctively if you're not. And when I say good work, I mean really standing behind what you're putting out there. The first couple of years of my business, I was more worried about the money than I was the quality of the work, which was really wrong.
Interesting.
But having to eat and survive and support a family, that's what you have to do. And again, around that probably seventh, eighth, ninth year, I worried less about the money and more about the quality of the work. Like, really thinking, am I putting out good work? Well, I knew I was. I knew I was from the very beginning. Thankfully, I was trying to do that. I, put a lot of work into it. But at the same time, it's like, how do you trust in yourself that the work you're doing is really solid? And until somebody tells you it is, really don't know that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it's funny because I meet a lot of people that say, oh, I don't need that validation. I don't need to know that what I'm doing is good. I don't need that kind of, but you know what? Everybody does.
Mhm.
The best thing, my best day I have always is when a client will call me up and say, I've got a problem. Can you help me solve it? And to me, that says, we really trust in what you're going to tell us. Now, they're not always going to take my advice, but they're going to listen to what I have to say, and it's up to them what they want to do. But, I think it's very telling as a professional to have that kind of trust. And, I've got some great clients. I love my clients, and they all know that this only works if it's a two-way relationship.
Mhm.
So
And
oh, go
I
ahead,
was just,
Lynn.
we'll put your contact information too in this thread. So if anybody wants to reach out to you and if they're just totally lost.
What is that contact information? We were about to ask the exact same thing. So tell everybody, how do we get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Best way is to look at citronandcompany.com. So I'll put the URL in the chat.
Perfect. And we'll tag it in Facebook as well for everybody. So how about you, Linda? Any last final words for the day real quick?
No, I really appreciate, we've always, we were excited when we met you at QuickBooks Connect and, we're thrilled we've been able to write for Intuit. And I hope anybody that's here watching this, if they want to start to really show what they know, reach out to Scott because you will be able to get on Firm of the Future blog. And that's a starting point. It just let people know, he'll help you and make your article look beautiful because you always make us look super smart. And I think it's a great way to get started, just to get published somewhere other than your own blog, but it's always good to do your own blog too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you all having me on, definitely. And I love what I do, and this has been great.
Thank you very much, everybody. Here's wishing everybody a very successful week. Thank you so much.
Bye now.